Love can be a tricky, fickle thing. Sometimes you think you've found it when you really haven't, and sometimes it's right in front of you but you refuse to accept it. Love can be heartwarming, love can be heartbreaking, love can be unexpected, love can sometimes even be expected. And nowhere are the trials and tribulations of romance more evident than in the life of a high school student. If we're talking about anime, that is, which of course we are. If you read the title of this review or even the review card only moments ago, you know that today's high school romance is Toradora, the 25-episode 2008-2009 series from JC Staff, and adapted from light novels written by Yukari Takamiya, who would later go on to create Golden Time, a series which I am actually rather fond of. That's all I got, so let's get to it. Ryuji, male, 17 years old, high school student, lives alone with his mother, loves cooking, cleaning, and general housework. At heart, quite the kind person, cursed with a thuggish physical appearance that frightens even his teachers, burdened by unrequited love, a crush on a girl in his class, Minori, friends with the student council vice president, Yusaku. And, yep, I think that about covers all our bases, except for a very big one, or a very small one, depending on how you look at it. A short girl named Taiga, practically small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, but more than aggressive and fiery enough to compensate, thus earning her the nickname Palm Top Tiger. However, the Palm Top Tiger happens to be good friends with Minori, Ryuji's crush, and happens to live right next door to him. And just so happens to herself have a crush on Ryuji's friend Yusaku. After a bumpy first meeting or two, Ryuji and Taiga quickly establish a collaborative relationship, each aiming to help the other hook up with their respective crushes, eventually becoming good friends in their own right, and perhaps even something more. Now, I'm not always one to comment on a show's themes or philosophies, admittedly because I can sometimes be too dense to properly notice them. But with Toradora, I felt like I was actually able to click together what the show's all about. To me, it was a lot about being honest with yourself, the distance between whatever exterior you put out for others, and the genuine inner core of who you are, even if you yourself do not realize it. As such, pretty much every main character, and even some important side ones, will at one point or another in Toradora have this disconnect between their inner feelings and outward actions. In effect, this means that every principal cast member is layered to some degree, with more to them than a cursory glance would imply, especially considering that, with few exceptions, the character designs themselves can be somewhat unremarkable. Arguably the most obvious example of this internal-external conflict would be Ami, a character who I neglected to introduce in the premise since she doesn't come into the series right away. Ami is a model and childhood friend of Yusaku who lives her life by putting on an act that more or less everyone, very much including herself, is aware of. Ami puts herself forward as the innocent, wide-eyed, cutesy girl, disguising her true personality of frustration, anger, even manipulation. She doesn't want to live a lie, but sees it as the optimal course of action. Like every other character, to varying degrees, over time this shell is broken down, and she learns to be more honest with others and comfortable with who she actually is. Next, we have Yusaku, a fun, entertaining guy with a flair for eccentricity and theatricality, who, if you recall, is the vice president of the student council, and his story goes hand in hand with a less major character that, like Ami, I have yet to mention, being the president herself, Sumire. Both Yusaku and Sumire may or may not have feelings for the other, but again, it goes back to the discrepancy between an individual's thoughts and actions, in that neither of them stand up to outright admit it. Then, Minori, who, for some reason, I find the most difficult to talk about, but her situation is at least easy to understand. Her outward character being the usual super cheerful, airheaded, sporty girl, but like everyone else, this may be something of a facade to avoid dealing with her real emotions. And those three out of the way brings us to the star of the show, Taiga, who, in some ways, is an opposite to her friend Minori, as while Minori projects herself as a cheery, go-get-em person, Taiga is much more brusque, abrasive, and prone to violence, hence her nickname, Palm Top Tiger. Of course, if you've picked up on the pattern at this point, her tsundere tendencies rarely mirror her true feelings, and instead serve to cover them up and push them down. I have yet to touch on Ryuji, and in some ways I think that's because his character dissonance is the most superficial, and it also doesn't hang around for particularly long in the story. It's pretty much exactly what I described in the premise. He has a delinquent-esque appearance that scares people off very easily, but is in actuality a kind, warm person. So once his classmates get to know him after a few episodes, they stop judging him on his appearance and he's free to be himself. That's just a little less meaty than what the others bring to the table, but it's not the end of the world because he's still a likable guy, which makes you want to root for him in his romantic endeavors. As even putting aside any potential subtext or implicit meanings to its story, Toradora is still more than entertaining as a simple love story, as much as a high school romance can be. Make no mistake, this is no after story. You're not going to see much beyond the hookup itself, but it's still sweet young love and you cheer for it when it finally goes down. That's kind of all I have to say about the story itself, in this good section that is. It's a show where for me, the characters are more important and more memorable than specific plot beats, which isn't a bad thing, that's just the kind of show it is. So that said, I guess that means we now talk about the presentation, starting with the animation, cause that'll be pretty quick and easy. By nature, this is not a series with many over-the-top fight scenes or sweeping vistas, but the visuals are solid enough and very nice for what they need to be. A few scenes in particular do stand out as spurts of rather excellent animation, but on the whole, Toradora is not a show to push the boundaries of the medium in that regard. No, but it plays its role more than adequately. So now that that's done with, we can get to what I really liked. The music. It's been a while since I ran into a soundtrack that I loved. Some shows can go their entire run without my noticing the music, or more than at least a couple tracks. Toradora is not one of those, with great tunes popping up sometimes as many as 3 or 4 times an episode. Most of my favorite songs were pretty cheery, jaunty, the kind of stuff that just perks me up, and the instrumentation is fitting for that, with like a mix of piano, electronic, trumpet, sometimes like a guitar or even a harpish sound. To be clear, not a masterpiece of a soundtrack, but well made and effective, which frankly doubles as a succinct description for the entire show. Now the openings and endings, as actual songs, I liked but didn't particularly love, except for the lyrics, cause the lyrics parrot a lot of the points of the show, like the first ending, which is pretty clearly written from Taiga's point of view, saying stuff about how she can't be honest with herself, she means one thing and says another, which is a cool touch. Definitely better than some random generic lyrics about love and happiness or something like that. And on the topic of audio, this is as good a time as any to reveal that I in fact watched Toradora dubbed. And I must say, it was a very strong dub that played both sides of the show remarkably well, with good delivery and timing for the comedy, then a believable amount of subtlety and nuance for the emotion. I don't watch enough dubs to have been familiar with any of the lead actors prior to watching the series, with the exception of Johnny Young Bosch's Yusaku, but frankly, everyone nailed their performances. I have literally no complaints. Well, technically that's not true. I have one complaint. Near the end of Toradora, episode 19 if I recall, there is a musical number performed by Taiga and Ami, which is, funny enough, not dubbed. I don't know why they chose not to dub it, as a sudden switch to subtitles was a little jarring, I have to say. And don't try to tell me it couldn't be done, cause Haruhi did it just fine. But so yeah, overall, besides that, the dub kicked ass. In fact, this is going to be a controversial opinion for just about any series, but I checked out several clips of the subtitled version afterwards, and in my own opinion, the dub is actually better than the original. Now of course, this is just me. Everyone is free to enjoy whichever they choose, but... The door? Who could that be at this hour? I record these things in the middle of the night. Oh no. Oh god, no. It's the elitists. They're already here. Let's just stay calm, stay quiet, maybe... Hey guys, what's happening? No, you must have misheard. I hate those. Despise them. They're an affront to everything that makes anime great. Ah! Ryuji's mom annoyed me. I really didn't care for her. She's a mental midget, one of those weird anime parents that acts like a toddler and forces you to question how they even stumbled through life before having their child to pick things up for them. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it's just, is it wrong for me to want adults to act a little adult-like? Adults can have fun, but would an adult say this?
Just a cup of Ryu's extra special soy milk? Soybeans are supposed to have all these isa-boing-boing thingies. They say it gives you bigger boobies.
Putting that aside, for as well done as it often is, Toradora is still a high school romance anime, and that topic is tread upon rather often, meaning that common genre complaints, or at least my common genre complaints, still to a degree hold true here. For one, I know it's just a very anime thing to do, but sometimes you can't help rolling your eyes at how seriously everyone takes crushes in student council elections, as if their lives depend on it. To quote episode 16 of this show, there's more to life than high school, but you wouldn't know it from how these guys act. Granted, this is not an issue exclusive to Toradora, and tends to be present in some form in many series of this genre, but it's just worth noting that it pops up here too. Likewise, it seems a key plot point in these kind of stories is always miss or a complete lack of communication, and Toradora is no exception. Granted, as I said earlier, a big point of the show is people not following through and acting on their true feelings, but sometimes things happen that make you just want to shout, talk to each other, please, and they don't. You could perhaps argue that this is a cultural difference, since Japanese culture is more focused on bottling things up and not making a scene, but that doesn't make it any less irritating. My next and by far most minor complaint is that at times Toradora moves fast, arguably too fast. Whether it's acting like Ryuji and Taiga are a well-established pair despite it only being episode 2, to Yusaku going off the deep end with few prior signs, to some things that happen near the end. Again, this is my most minor complaint, but it was something I noticed from time to time. And the last bad thing I have to say about Toradora is that it's the kind of show where you know the end before it even begins, thanks to two things: basic genre knowledge and the title. If you're not familiar with Japanese, Toradora might as well be nonsense to you, but it's really a rather clever title. Tora is the Japanese word for tiger, thus referencing the palm-top tiger, taiga. Then, for Dora, Ryuji is called a dragon a few times throughout the series. The Japanese pronunciation of dragon is Doragon, the first two sounds being Dora. Hence, Toradora, tiger, dragon, taiga, and Ryuji. So, the whole show is ultimately an exercise in waiting for the obvious couple to actually become a couple, for Tora and Dora to become Toradora, while everyone faffs about with other potential romances that you just know won't stick in the long run. I'm glad I finally got around to watching Toradora. For a while it had been one of those pretty popular series that I just had no opinion on, and when it comes right down to it, yeah, Toradora was good. Did it make me re-examine what anime can do or what stories high school romance can tell? No, but execution can often trump premise, and I think that's the best way to put it when it comes to Toradora. So after taking everything into account, as well as my own subjective enjoyment on a scale from F to S, sometimes you just gotta go with your gut, and as much as I really liked Toradora, it lacked that certain spark that warrants the highest rating. So I have to go with a very solid A. It didn't do anything majorly wrong, but it also didn't hit me on that raw level that an S has to. Nonetheless, if you're in the mood for anime high school romance, Toradora would undoubtedly be one of the first on my list, alongside like Clan Ad, and I really love Clan Ad. Toradora is currently available for legal streaming from Viewster, that's a new one, Hulu, and Crunchyroll. In a rare case of Crunchyroll hosting both the sub and the dub. If you are intrigued and have yet to see the series, go for it. There's plenty to like and it's only 25 episodes. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching, have a great day, leave any feedback in the comments, subscribe if you want more, and if there's anything you'd like to see reviewed, by all means tell me. Although if I'm being honest with you, I've already planned out my video schedule through June. So any requests I get now will be a long time coming. Regardless, this review was requested by Ian the Merman. Coincidentally, your request came at a time when I was already about to start watching Toradora of my own accord. So you, sir, have some good timing. Remember, I'm also on Twitter if you are so inclined. See you next time.